Welcome to Inside Bremerton. This is the City of Bremerton's video newsletter, focusing on issues and topics important to its citizens. Lucky me, I'm in the Kitsap Sun today. This is a story, and BCAT and the Kitsap Sun have been partners. We've done lots of things together. And I've been invited to talk to their publisher, Charles Horton. So we're in his beautiful palatial office, very, very nice space. Very impressed with how the Sun looks today as you come into the lobby. It's very professional, very nice looking, and I bet that's because of what you wanted it to look like. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I don't know that I like my office being referred to as palatial because
it is. It's very, very nice.
It's a nice space, yes.
So Charles, let's introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, especially in the newspaper business.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier, the newspaper business is something I kind of stumbled into. If I go back before I landed in newspapers, my dream growing up as I entered high school, and maybe it was because I was a really shy kid growing up, but as I entered high school and I got involved in the theater arts, that kind of became my dream. And I remember that I came down and I auditioned for Cornish College of the Arts right across the water. And I entered Cornish, and I spent a few years there, and was bound and determined to be a stage actor. Quickly learned that I probably wasn't as talented as I thought I was up in North Pole, Alaska. And then I joined the Army, did a short stint in the Army, and when I came out, I went back to Fairbanks, Alaska. Little story, I needed a summer job. I saw this advertisement for being a district manager at a newspaper, and the big requirements were that you had to be able to work with kids. And having worked at a fine arts camp as a camp counselor, I figured, oh, well, that's perfect for me. So I went and applied for a job as a district manager at the newspaper. Didn't even own a car at the time, which was another requirement. But after I got offered the job, I quickly went out and got one.
Got a car.
A $500 beater that somebody had painted a big yellow sun on the top of the car, which I quickly bought a can of spray paint and spray painted over. But so I spent about a year and a half. I was 6 months as a district manager there. The circulation sales manager left shortly after that, so I took over his role for about another year. And there was an old saying back then that you would get ink in your blood. And for some reason, I really enjoyed it, and I tended to do pretty well at it. So I went from Fairbanks to Oregon, where I worked, and then I went to North Carolina, Indiana, and I was always looking for an opportunity to come back to the Northwest. And so I saw this job in Bremerton, and at the time, I didn't even know where Bremerton was, even though I lived in Seattle for three and a half years. And so I came out to interview. I remember the story that Mike Levi, the old publisher, likes to tell is that I was a 29-year-old guy, and I walked in the door, and he wanted to know if I had asked my mom for a note to come up for the interview. So I was a young-looking 29, I guess.
Yeah, you still are.
But so I was very fortunate enough to be able to come back to the Northwest and land here in Kitsap, and then I've been able to do a whole host of things.
And when you came to the Sun, what was your first position?
I was the circulation
Circulation
director.
man.
Yeah, so I was the guy who was, and back in that time, I don't know if people remember or not, but back in that time we had horrible delivery service. And we had gone through some changes that were creating some struggles for us. So I came in and worked with much of our staff on trying to get that kind of under control, and then started all the annoying telemarketing calls that people were getting back in those days. But so that was for the first 3.5 years of my time with the Sun. I worked with the circulation department.
Right. And you were tapped for publisher in 2009. Right. Been about a year and a half. What is the job of the newspaper publisher? What is your job?
Well, it's ever changing, I think. But really, the way that I look at it is that it's my job to ensure the overall health of the paper. So I work with all the department heads to ensure that we're healthy today, and that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, will be healthy.
Are you the ultimate, are you the highest position at the paper? Is the publisher the highest position?
Locally, I am. So I am I am responsible for local operations as a whole. Now, we have directors who are responsible for their departments. For instance, David Nelson is responsible for editorial. And David works in conjunction with me and he's got someone that he reports to on a corporate level too. What that's allowed us to do over the past year and a half is we've kind of restructured to ensure that we as a company, the E.W. Scripps Company, will be healthy, kind of going long term, is there's a lot more sharing amongst papers than there used to be. So now, you know, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the paper and the long-term health of this paper specifically. David also has someone that he works with on the strategic vision of editorial long-term.
So let's talk about the parent company, Scripps, and how are they doing? How many papers do they have?
So Scripps has 14 papers. Scripps has actually done pretty well during the economic downturn, and a lot of that comes from the fact is they've been very, very smart with their finances. Where most of the papers have gotten into trouble, most of the other newspaper companies have gotten into trouble, is that they took on humongous amounts of debt over the years leading up to the recession. I mean, if you look at many of them, they were just buried in debt. So it's not that they weren't making money when the recession hit. It's just they weren't making enough to make these tremendous debt payments that they had to make anymore. Scripps wasn't saddled with that because they've been very, very smart in the investments they've made. So we've been fortunate that we haven't had to do some of the draconian things that some of the other companies have had to do because we don't have that huge debt load.
Good. So who determines how communities are reported in the Kitsap Sun? Are communities such as Bainbridge, Port Orchard, Bremerton, Paulsbo, Silver, you know, all our little niches.
Right.
Who determines the coverage?
David on a day-to-day will watch over that and see where he needs to put reporters that based upon the audience that we serve and also based upon the issues. And that's one of the things I think he's done a really good job on is working with his assistant editors is really making sure that we have the right coverage in the right place at the right time. But on a day-to-day basis, he is taking care of that.
Personally, I have noticed that there's lots of coverage from Bainbridge lately. Lots of coverage from Bainbridge. So that's just a matter of the Sun feels that's important. The readers are demanding that.
Right,
Is that
yeah,
the
so
answer?
he's, and he would be able to talk a little bit more about exactly why he's made the decisions. Part of it may just be the fact, too, that we recently, Tristan Boric, he was a freelancer for us for a long time, was a big part of both our Bainbridge Islander, which is a saturation mail product that we have out there that goes out weekly. We were actually able to hire him on a little bit ago, probably about 2 months ago, I think, right at the beginning of the year. And so just bringing him in-house has also been able to help us kind of increase our coverage out there.
Well, you know, BCAT also has a vested interest in Bainbridge Island. We have been serving their city council. There's been some changes in access television on Bainbridge Island, and we are now covering their council meetings. So, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and say it. It's actually, you know, Bainbridge Island is coming into the Kitsap community a little bit more.
Yes, they are.
And so the folks on Bainbridge are seeing more local meaning all of Kitsap County programs from BCAT. So it's a really good thing.
Yes.
It's a very good thing.
And I know the Islander has continued to grow. I think we launched that about 7 years ago, and it's continued to grow, and we get tons of positive feedback for that publication that we have out on Bainbridge Island.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's talk about those other publications, since what a nice segue that is. So aside from the weekly, the daily, excuse me, Kitsap Sun is a daily paper. You do have weekly papers, the Bainbridge Islander, North Mason Life, Gig Harbor Life, and soon, maybe when this is broadcast, Shelton Life.
Right.
And those are weekly papers. Tell us how those evolved.
Well, it started with Bainbridge Islander, and so
And you said 7 years?
I think it's going on seven
Nice.
plus. So And what it really came down to is there were areas of the market that had a need to be served that we weren't serving with the daily all that well. So Bainbridge Island was one of those kind of situations where we looked at a market on Bainbridge Island that our newspaper penetration with our daily product was probably in the 20 to 25% range, and nobody really had a firm lock. So you had us in there, you had the Seattle Times that had some penetration in there, but nobody really could help the businesses out there or the community out there kind of get one paper that we knew covered everything. So before my time even came, so it's got to be 7+ years because it was up and running when I got here. It was a publication that allowed us to go out and talk to Bainbridge about things that don't normally get covered in a daily newspaper, right? So we cover, we cover government, we cover things that are going on, but there's a lot of that kind of what I refer to as, and others do as well, kind of chicken soup news. So-and-so is doing this, or the profile on this person. And that's what the Islander allowed us to do. And what we found was that there was a real hunger for that by folks. And so I think North Mason was the one that we started after that. And again, it was a community that was kind of being underserved, both from an advertising standpoint and from a content standpoint. And we've tried some other ones, and we've pulled back and we moved forward. But what we've really found for us is that there are these outlying communities that don't really get served well by dailies. Gig Harbor was another one, and Shelton is another one. It's not really served well by dailies. And there's a type of news that people really enjoy reading, which is news about their neighbors, their friends, their kids, that nobody was really doing. And we found a lot of success in bringing those out to communities. And the areas that we're in right now on Bainbridge and Gig Harbor and North Mason and then going up into Shelton, the feedback has just been overwhelmingly positive. That that type of news about your friends and your family and people is just really welcome. And the fact that it shows up in your mailbox, it's to everybody regardless of your ability to pay for a subscription or to go to a single copy rack. It shows up in your mailbox and you can sit down with it for 15 or 20 minutes and kind of catch up about life, right? And if you look at everything else has been called life after the Islander, because it really is about that. And it's been very, very welcome. And the advertisers get great results out of it because they get to talk to everybody in their community. So.
Right. Very good. I understand that beginning in April, the Northwest Navigator, which is the publication for the United States Navy in our community as far as Everett, so outside of our community, and beginning in April, the Kitsap Sun will be the publisher of that paper.
Yeah, we were really excited about that.
Very good.
Yeah, it was about a 4-month process. We had a lot of people involved. We had Mike Stevens, our Director of Community Publications and Marketing, was a big factor in that, and Rob White, who's one of our senior sales managers, was a big factor in bringing that to us. And for us, it was an important thing to do because the Navy is such a large part of the Kitsap community. And we really wanted to be able to be a part of what they were doing and helping with their coverage. And the Navy also, they wanted to kind of improve upon kind of they're seeing the same thing that we're seeing, which is there's a big movement. There's another generation that's coming up to the way that they get their news is online and through mobile devices. And that's something that they really wanted to capitalize on. And obviously we've spent a lot of our time and effort doing that. So it was really a great match in the end, is that from a terms of here's a big part of our community that we wanted to be able to help serve. We're able to do that. From an advertising community, there's a big group of folks that they want to be able to reach out and touch. And then for the Navy, for us to be able to bring kind of the advances in technology that we've worked on here for our daily product, to be able to bring that to them as well. It's a great partnership. Good. And we will launch our first edition on April 1st. And
no joke.
Yeah, no joke. And we're really excited about it. So
excellent. Well, let's take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about digital media and the future and where in the heck we're all going to go with the newspaper as we look towards the future. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside Bremerton. We're in the Kitsap Sun with publisher Charles Horton, and we've been talking a lot about the business and dailies and weeklies, and now let's talk about digital. And you can read the Kitsap Sun online, of course, or you can hold it in your hands, which some of us really like to do. I like to hold a book. I like to hold the newspaper. It's just part of my ritual thing.
And really,
I
we're
guess.
happy with either one. As long as you're reading us, we're happy.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
So, give us some feeling of how do you know the numbers? How many folks are reading online?
We do. We know that about every month we have about 400,000 plus people who read KitsapSun.com, and those are unique people. So that's and now that includes everyone all across the country.
The country.
We have a
Kids
lot of
that
people that come.
transplant to college or whatever.
A lot of Europe. Matter of fact, one of the stories I'll tell you is that a few years ago we started a little ritual with some folks that I worked with actually at my first paper in Fairbanks, where we did a guys' weekend. So we'd get together for kind of a long weekend. So our first one was in Leavenworth, and you got a bunch of guys in their early 30s going off for the first guys' weekend in Leavenworth, and we picked the perfect time. It was during the accordion festival. So we're sitting in a restaurant, and there was an older gentleman that came up to us and kind of giving us a bad time about picking the accordion festival for our guys' weekend. But he lived down in Oregon, and he talked about how he got on the Kitsap Sun every week to read at KitsapSun.com to just kind of catch up, because he was from Bremerton and he had lived here for a long
Cool.
time. But we've got people in Europe that access it, in Japan. Matter of fact, we do during football season, we live stream football games, and I think it was Central Kitsap, where whenever we'd live stream a Central Kitsap game, there was a brother of one of the players who was stationed in Japan, and he would get on and he'd get to watch his brother play.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. How long have you been doing that kind of thing, sports and streaming?
I think this is our second year where we did, well, I'll say this. We've done 2 years of consecutively streaming football games and basketball games. It all started with a crazy harebrained idea between me and our web editor at the time, Angela Dice, and this was back when I was the director of Interactive here, where it started when Central Kitsap went to the semifinals of state, and they were playing down at the Tacoma Dome.
In
We
football?
thought, yeah, in football. And we thought, well, what would happen if we could go down there and just live stream it? And it took like 8 people. We had like 8 people from editorial all down there. But I remember Chuck Stark was sitting next to the sports reporter from the Seattle Times. And the sports reporter from the Seattle Times was just blown away by the fact that we were sitting there live streaming the Central Kitsap High School football game. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, the very first time we'd ever done it, I think we had like 500 people who were watching it online. So it was really cool and a lot of fun.
How do you determine what events you're going to go to and streaming that kind of, be it sports or events, things like that? How do you determine what you're going to cover?
We've covered with the live streaming. We've done more so sports, and a lot of times what Chuck and the sports team is looking for is they're looking for games that they think are going to be of high interest to folks. And then in terms of video, each of those reporters looks at when they're, because some of our stuff we put video up that isn't live streaming, and the reporters will look at and say, is there something that can be added to the story by having a video? And so they tend to make those determinations kind of on the fly, whether or not it's going to add to the story or not.
So how many people are subscribing to the Sun? How many people actually want the Kitsap Sun in their house every day?
In paper form. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we've got
in the paper.
on our Sunday, which is our biggest circulation, there's close to 25,000 people who are paying for a copy of the Kitsap Sun. Now, we do a survey every couple of years to really find out how many people are reading it. And what we found is that between the print and the online version, there's about 120,000 people who read the Kitsap Sun every week in some form, whether it's in online or whether it's in the print. Now we haven't taken into account in those surveys yet how many people are actually reading it on their mobile devices. But we have, it's about 3,500 people a month now that are reading on average every day on an iPhone or a BlackBerry or something like that. So that's a big growing piece for us.
Right. How many people are currently employed by the Kitsap Sun?
We are sitting at about 118 right now.
There used to be a lot more?
There were.
So we're like government, like private business, like everybody, working harder, working smarter, working with less.
Using technology.
Using
But here's
technology.
the interesting thing, and I'll preface this by saying this is not where I'm trying to get to, but we looked back at a paper from the early 60s of the Kitsap Sun, and one of the things that they did is they took a picture of every single person who was working at the Sun, and they put their picture on the pages. And back in the day when they had to do hot lead type, everything else, you know how many people worked here?
Yeah, how many?
85. So the fact that we're at 118 and we've got technology that does a lot of that stuff for us today is still pretty good. It's still pretty good. And yeah, we've tightened our belt like everybody has.
Absolutely.
But one of the things I think that we've done a pretty good job of, and I think that we feel pretty comfortable sitting around the table and saying, is that we've made some choices, and we've made some choices at times that were painful, but we've tried to avoid doing anything that affected feet on the street, so reporters who are covering our community, and we've tried to not affect our advertising sales folks who are out there helping businesses grow their business. So those are two things that we've tried to protect as we've gone through it.
Excellent. So the Sun has 3 special interest publications. So if you want these, you have to subscribe to them, and then they're delivered right to your home.
Right.
And I think the biggest one is the TV Week.
Yes.
The Sun quit publishing it, thinking people get that information on the web, on the TV screen, that kind of thing. People screamed.
Loudly.
So that's a special publication. The others are Brain Games Weekly. Now that's interesting. And also the sports paper, which is fairly new to the Sun. I enjoy that. I enjoy that very much. I do like it. So those are your 3. And then recently there was a whole hullabaloo about movies. Where's the movie listings? Where are they? So I believe that was the decision of the theaters. Is that correct?
Right. So movie listings have always been a paid listing. Now, we went back to the table with Regal Cinemas, and they have put their movie listings back in daily. We also, because we know what's important to our subscribers, David and Michael Moore sat down and worked out a way that they could get them in at least once a week in the A&E. But I will tell you, we've got another little plan in the works that hopefully by the time this airs, movie listings for all theaters will be back in daily. We're working with a client who is pretty passionate about making sure that they're in there.
Excellent.
So hopefully by the time this airs, that we'll have that worked out.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's talk about community partners. The Sun has helped numerous special events, nonprofits, community events, things that folks rely on, and the Sun has been helping them. Let's talk a little bit about community partners and the Sun's philosophy on that.
Yeah, well, I think, the thing that we believe in very strongly in is that we're a part of this community and that we're serving this community. And everything that we do is to try to make the community better, whether it's with coverage or whether it's through these community partnerships. And we believe very strongly that we have to set an example. And that's why, to the tune of about $380,000 in cash and in-kind contributions, we put that back out into the community. And it really is because we want this community to be as strong as it can possibly be. And that's something to us that's extremely important. Everything that we do, unless we're helping make the community stronger and better, it's all for naught unless we're doing that.
Excellent. I understand the Sun, the Kitsap Sun, is a very strong advocate of the Hazelwood Family YMCA.
We are.
Soon to be in Silverdale, and we're going to cover that a little more on BCAT, but beautiful facility coming to Silverdale.
Right. Well, that's, for us, one of the things that we always look at whenever we look at who we're going to partner with out in the community is we're looking for people who have kind of the same values that we do. I think that the YMCA's definitely have that. I'm actually very happy that not only are we supporting it with cash and in kind, but I'm going to serve for the Hazelwood Family YMCA, I'm going to serve on their advisory board as well. So again, the mission there of getting families together and getting a community to come together, that really lines up well with what we're trying to do as a business. So that's why that was a natural fit for us.
Excellent. Another thing that the Kitsap Sun has supported since, many, many, many years is the bell ringer that this community supports very, very well.
Right. It's something that, and I think it's 85, maybe a little bit more.
85
going on 90.
Years.
It's very humbling for me, especially over the last couple of years, to watch. I mean, we're in a time where the recession has hit a lot of people and hit a lot of people really, really hard. And the need is greater than ever. And one of the things that I've really been humbled by over the last couple of years is to see that the response has been greater. We set a record in 2009, and in 2010 we set another record. And it started with, it started really at the end of 2009 where there was a gentleman who passed away, and he left $15,000 to start the 2010 Bell Ringer campaign off. And that benefits 8 or 9 food banks throughout Kitsap County. And, that's all we do is promote it and bring the money in and divvy it out to the food banks. It's really supported by the readers and the community. And it's, like I said, it's extremely humbling to watch, especially in these times, how much more people are willing to give because they know the needs out there.
Well, Charles, I want to thank you so much for sharing, first of all, your palatial office and allowing us to tour the building and take a look at different folks as they work and the printing and the whole operation here at the Sun. We thank you for your time, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us inside Bremerton. We'll see you next time.